My mother has always had a greater affection for my younger sibling than for me. Despite this, I tried my best to support my mother because I felt indebted to her for raising me. However, as soon as it was decided that my sister would be returning, my mother immediately cut me off. She yelled at me, telling me to leave, and called me a parasite. If that's what I wanted, she wouldn't tolerate me anymore. She vowed to make up for all the grievances she held against me. My name is Emily, and I am 28 years old. After completing college, I found employment at a decent company and continued living with my mother. My father passed away a few years ago, and my sister is already married with a family of her own. Originally, I had planned to live on my own as well, but my sister's marriage took precedence over mine. I couldn't bear to leave my mother alone, so I continued to reside with her. Looking back, my mother always doted on my younger sister. Selena, my sister, is the complete opposite of me. She is adorable and fashionable, although she does have a manipulative personality. The remarkable thing about her is that her good looks overshadow her negative traits. She effortlessly lives her life as a beautiful girl on the outside. My sister is the polar opposite of me, whose only reflection is her sincerity, but she seems to be quite beloved by my mother. After my sister got married and moved out, my mother often complained about me. She would say, "I wish I could live with Selena instead of you. Why is Selena so attractive while you have nothing to offer? Oh my goodness, I desire to witness Selena. I am weary of observing your countenance. Even presently, I am toiling to sustain this kin. Why does she have to be so unkind to me? Hey mother, I know you believe Selena is adorable, but you do not have to express that much." When I interrupted her in repulsion, my mother became infuriated. "What if you slumber soundly at Selena? I would not have to endure this every day. What do you signify? You do not have to undergo this. You do not possess any predicaments in your life, do you? We have been inhabiting this domicile since father passed away." Puts with that tone, "You're not contemplating. You're doing me a favor by stating I accomplished this for you, are you? I did not intend it in that manner. All right, I have no alternative but to cohabit with you. If Selena had not wedded, I would be dwelling with her, not you. All right, that is sufficient. We now dwell in a domicile that was reconstructed a few years prior to my dad perishing. It is not my mother's designation, but I am the one making the remaining loan payments. But my mother always compares me to my sister and insults only me. I was at the end of my tether residing with my mother, who uttered hateful things to me every time she perceived my countenance. Yet there is a rationale why I did not surrender on my mother. When my dad perished, she wept for days. She did not consume well and was so fatigued. The individuals around her were so concerned about her. I asked her family to support my mother from now on. I must safeguard my mother for my dad's sake. That is what I pondered, as her eldest daughter. I have always possessed a strong sense of responsibility. Nowadays, I frequently become enraged at my mother's actions. In the wake of my father's passing, my mother became the sole parent in my life. Although I couldn't bring myself to despise her completely, one day, my sister and her husband unexpectedly arrived at her house. Upon seeing my mom, my sister uttered something outrageous. She tearfully explained that they were struggling to make ends meet, as her husband had recently been laid off and they couldn't afford their apartment rent. Shocked by this news, I could only rely on my mom even more. My sister then requested to live with us, expressing her need for assistance. Without hesitation, my mom immediately agreed, believing that she had to help her beloved Selena. Overjoyed, my mom accepted my sister's declaration of love. They made this decision without considering my opinion, leaving me dissatisfied. I approached my mom and tried to intervene, reminding her that I also lived in the house. However, she remained unfazed, stating that there was enough space for 2 additional people and that I should not be concerned. She asserted that since the house was under her name, she had the final say. Feeling helpless, I attempted to argue back, but my mom sighed and threatened me, suggesting that if I had such a problem with the situation, I should leave the house. Stunned by her remark, I froze, unable to comprehend what she was saying. I couldn't believe that she would suggest such a thing. I can hear you. I instructed you to depart. Initially, you are merely a substitute for Selena to me, you understand. That is dreadful. There is no need for you to speak to me in that manner. I don't want to have a parasite like you. If Selena returns, I don't require you. My mother clearly told me so, and I was blinded by the darkness. I knew my mother adored my sister. I have been taking care of my mother throughout my entire life. She cut me off so easily. My sister, who left my mother after getting married without considering anything, was loved so much. And I, who have supported my mother for many years, was treated unfairly. I truly didn't comprehend everything my mother said and did. I was so frustrated and miserable that I almost burst into tears. My sister, with a sly sneer, spoke to me in this manner. She said, "Mom also said this. Sis, why don't you get the hell out of here?" "What?" I exclaimed. She continued, "If you don't leave, there won't be enough space in the house, right? We don't need you." "What do you mean you don't need me? I'm the one who has been supporting Mom until now." "So what?" she replied. "She wants to live with me. We don't need you anymore. You're trash." With that settled, Selena called my mother and her husband, and they began to plan a moving schedule together. Even though I was hurting right next to her. "I am so happy. Let's have grilled meat on the day we move in," Selena exclaimed. "Wow, you're so kind. I'll get the ingredients," her husband responded. Everyone was so excited that my presence meant nothing to them. As I stood there in shock, I overheard my sister cursing at me. Once again, I find myself here. "Hey, what are you doing just standing there like that? I instructed you to leave this place. However, you cannot simply state that we do not require your presence. You are a parasite, so kindly leave and give us some space. We will be moving out by the end of the week. I assume that will be acceptable, correct?" I struggled to lower my voice and finally complied with their request. Meanwhile, my mother was planning a brief trip with my sister. "You had better vacate the premises by the time we return from our excursion, all right?" With those final words, my mother departed with my sister and her spouse. To my mother, I was merely a distraction. As long as Selena was present, I did not truly matter. "If you are willing to go to such lengths, I will no longer tolerate it. If it comes to that, I will subject you to a great deal of suffering." No longer feeling sympathy for my mother, I was determined to seek revenge. From that moment on, things moved swiftly. I promptly reached out to a moving company and swiftly relocated while my mother and sister were away. The movers asked me inquisitively, "Music? All this stuff? Do you need any assistance in ensuring everything is clean?" I responded to them with a wide grin, stating that I was moving into the company housing. I had heard that there were still available accommodations in the company housing, and they had extended several invitations for me to move in. However, I declined due to my mother's presence. This time, I discovered that there were still vacancies and decided to commence the move-in procedures immediately. I never anticipated beginning my life in company housing in this manner, but once I settled in, I immediately found it to my liking. The room was even more pleasant than I expected. My expectations were exceeded when I realized I had settled into my new living arrangements provided by the company. As I checked my phone, I noticed a missed call from my mother and sister. The voicemail instructed me to come over immediately. Although I anticipated this, the number of missed calls was more than I had anticipated. Knowing that ignoring their messages might result in them showing up at my workplace, I decided to stop by my mother's house on my way home from work. Upon opening the door, I was greeted by my mother and sister, both wearing intense expressions. They demanded to know what was going on and why there was nothing left in the house. In a calm manner, I replied, amused by their anger, asking where they expected me to take the furniture and appliances. They insisted that I return them to our previous house and not take them without permission. Confused, I asked why I should give them back. My sister raised her voice, questioning my actions and stating that the furniture and appliances belonged to our mother. I couldn't help but burst into laughter at my sister's comment. Apologizing, I explained that I had purchased all the furniture and appliances myself, and that I was moving out, so it was only natural for me to take my belongings with me. My sister, still confused, asked what I meant. I clarified that all the furniture and appliances left in the house had been bought by me using my own money. It was my property, and I had every right to take it with me. However, my family disagreed, arguing that just because I bought them didn't mean I should take everything with me. They believed that the furniture and appliances were part of the house from the beginning. My sibling was breathing heavily and glaring at me with a mischievous expression on her face. The balance in our bank account was zero, and we couldn't use our mother's credit card while on vacation. So I had no choice but to borrow money from a cash advance to cover the expenses. Oh, really? So, you took all the money from the bank, didn't you? Of course, because it was my own money. What's wrong with taking it all? When I playfully teased her, my sister turned towards me and shouted, "Don't mess with me." She got closer and closer, her face turning red as she yelled at me to give back the money. That large book should have contained the insurance money from our father. What are you talking about? It's not in there. No way. When I came to this house before, there was a significant amount of money in there. That was just me adding to my income every month. It's just that it has been accumulating. Then what about Dad's insurance money? It's been gone for a long time. Your beloved mother spent it all. As I said that, my sister turned her head towards my mom. My mom quickly looked away and made a surprised expression. Wait a minute, Mom, is it true? Well, my sister asked fearfully, but my mom only mumbled. My sister, who had become numb to the situation, yelled at my mom, "What the hell is going on?" I came home because I thought Dad's insurance money was in this house. Trying to calm down Selena, who had lost her temper, my mom muttered, "Calm down." How could I calm down? It's your fault for spending Dad's finances. Isn't that the case? What do you plan to do in regards to this situation? Oh, how surprising. I was simply delighted that you and I could reside together once again. You returned because you also desired to live with me, correct? Oh, you must be joking. I only returned to settle my outstanding financial obligations. Debt. As I discovered from the discussion between my mother and sister, my sister and her spouse became addicted to gambling, resulting in a substantial amount of debt. In an attempt to repay the debt, they resorted to gambling once again. However, their attempts only caused the debt to accumulate further. Her spouse was unable to continue working and was dismissed due to restructuring. My sister and her spouse, who were drowning in immense debt, returned to this house in hopes of obtaining our father's insurance money. Unbeknownst to my mother, she was being taken advantage of by my sister, and she hastily asked me to leave the house. This is the outcome. Now you understand, don't you? There is no more insurance money for our father in this house. All that remains is the mortgage. I will depart now, and you all will be responsible for the remaining mortgage, all right. Then, unexpectedly, my sister rushed towards me with tears in her eyes. She pleaded, "Wait a minute, sis. My husband and I are both in debt. There is no way we can repay the loan. But that is none of my concern. Let us live with your mother. Did you not know? I was unaware of this situation. Our mother always expressed her desire to live with you as well. So I am genuinely happy for you." "Oh no, wait. Do not leave, Emily. Please, Emily, stay here. Oh, for heaven's sake." I managed to break free from the grasp of my clinging mother and sister with all my strength. "I have been supporting you, Mom, in this household for my entire existence. I have even been paying the mortgage on the house. However, you only show favoritism towards Selena. And now that she is returning, you tell me to leave, calling me a parasite. Are you kidding me? Selena is not just a cute little sister, she is nothing more than a human parasite. I have made up my mind. I will never return to this house again. Mom, Selena, you will have to live in debt at best. With these words, I departed from my parents' home. My mom and sister clung to me until the very end, but I had no reason to listen to them anymore. It has been nearly a month since then. My mom and sister, who are impatient, started working part-time during the day. However, there is no way they would be able to earn enough money. In the end, they had to sell the family home and move to a cheap apartment where they argue every day. Selena said to Mom, "It's because you said you were going to kick her out. I could have used her if you had let her stay." My mom replied, "I did it to make room for you guys. Can't you live without our money? Oh, and you too," sweetly saying that you wanted to live with me, but in the end, you're only after the money. So what? You're worthless apart from money. Watch your mouth and get out of here. They can barely afford to eat for the day, let alone buy any clothing items. The three of them should learn to get along and cooperate. They truly are helpless individuals. As for me, on the other hand, I am spending my time differently. Living a satisfying existence at the corporate residence to which I relocated, my journey to my job is now briefer than previously, thus granting me additional personal time. I was taken aback when I was evicted from my parental abode, but now I would prefer to express gratitude for their decision to expel me. Henceforth, I aspire to dedicate my days to experiencing joy, solely focusing on my own well-being. Anna told me and my husband, Robert, to leave the house if we weren't going to help with the housework. Despite giving our son and his wife a monthly allowance of around $33,000, Anna often made hurtful comments that affected us deeply. Although usually sociable and smiling, Anna's cold words surprised us and caused a strain in our relationship. One day, her words brought us to tears, and our resentment towards her continued to grow. As a 62-year-old housewife, I live peacefully with my always smiling and gentle husband, Robert. Our son, Kevin, is compassionate like his father and has a successful career in the city, where he met Anna and fell in love. When Anna first visited our home, she left a strong impression as a lively and charming woman. We wholeheartedly bless their marriage, but her behavior towards us has caused a rift in our family. Upon marrying, Anna decided to resign from her job and assume responsibility for all the household chores. Kevin appeared appreciative of Anna's assistance, enabling him to concentrate on his work. I can depend on Anna, and she's managing the household well. Thanks to her, work has become even more pleasurable. We, particularly I, were genuinely delighted that our son, Kevin, had embraced such a gracious wife. However, I discovered through Anna that individuals can have a completely different persona once they discard their external facade. During a Christmas gathering, I was taken aback by how much she had transformed from the previous image I had of her. Anna used to be a gentle brunette who perfectly embodied the attributes of a well-mannered woman. But now she exhibited vibrant blonde hair, daring makeup, and flamboyant accessories. She resembled a young person following the latest fashions, causing us to do a double take. Both my husband and I couldn't conceal our surprise, and other relatives also inquired in unison, "Anna, is that the current trend?" Kevin considerately defended Anna's altered style, remarking, "Apologies for the abrupt change, but since Anna is a homemaker, she doesn't need to be concerned about her appearance. She's rediscovering herself and embracing her new image. Moreover, she remains dedicated to her household duties, so I believe it's acceptable for her to dress as she pleases." I nodded and replied, "If Kevin comprehends and embraces Anna, we should as well." We were simply taken aback, not meaning to censure her. However, Anna later consumed excessive alcohol at a gathering, and began to create a disturbance while being inebriated. She bragged, "I defeated 3 schoolmates in junior high, don't cross me," and made disrespectful remarks even to us older individuals. Why not perish earlier? Old annoyances? No one desires your existence. Frankly, her statements were both astonishing and painful. Regardless of how much you consume alcohol, you should not utter words that trample on others' emotions. I was silently wishing that Anna would comprehend this. My spouse's expression was clearly darkened by astonishment and fury. Kevin as well, unable to conceal his bewilderment at Anna's words and actions, gently advised Anna to relax a bit and apologize. It's not appropriate to make such comments in front of everyone. Nevertheless, Anna, like a sulky child, adopted a challenging stance even towards Kevin. "Kevin, you always delegate household matters to me, correct? If it's you with your lack of strength, I can easily handle you." And her determination only intensified, and she ended up expressing dissatisfaction to the individuals present. Everyone was unable to conceal their surprise and perplexity at her conduct. Ultimately, Anna drifted off to sleep for a while due to the alcohol, and during that period, tranquility was somewhat restored. But it is obvious that everyone was annoyed with Anna. Some relatives congregated, whispering about Anna's behavior. Anna was discussing overpowering her classmates earlier. Was she a bit unruly in the past? I assumed Anna was a solemn individual since she graduated from a renowned university. The relatives voiced their concerns, but do you truly aware of her past? Are you certain she's that earnest? Why not verify it? I pondered, yes, that's a good suggestion. Kevin also contemplated and confirmed, yes, I'll ensure to check. When I engaged a detective agency to examine Anna's background, an unexpected fact surfaced. In middle school, Anna was the head of a small group, and individuals who knew her back then always heeded her. In high school, she seemed much more subdued outwardly, but her ties with her middle school companions were still profound. It turned out that when Kevin was at work, she had been inviting those old friends to the house and causing disturbance for the neighbors. Discovering this unfamiliar aspect of Anna, everyone was speechless with amazement. Kevin was even contemplating separation, but Anna seemed genuinely regretful and implored with tears, "I won't do it again. Please reconsider the divorce." She then erased contacts from her phone in front of Kevin, severing communication with friends from her delinquent days. She also phoned each of the relatives she had upset during the Christmas incident to apologize. I received an apology call from her as well, and her sincere words made me start to comprehend her a bit more. Kevin accepted her heartfelt apology and decided not to proceed with the divorce. I encountered Anna again during the summer. She had become more reticent and seemed transformed. I thought she must have matured, and I wanted to bolster her. However, life is uncertain. One day, while I was on duty, I attempted to lift something heavy and suddenly experienced intense discomfort in my spine. A coworker nearby promptly escorted me to a medical facility, and I received a diagnosis of a herniated disc. Upon informing Kevin of this, he made an unforeseen suggestion. "Why not cohabit with both of you? It will be more secure with us around, especially since you're both not getting any younger. It would be inconvenient if something unforeseen occurs in the future." I was initially taken aback by his words, but I was actually contemplating the same idea, so I was content with his consideration. As the pain alleviated slightly, the entire family assembled to deliberate on the matter comprehensively. Subsequently, Kevin and Anna concluded residing in our residence. Our dwelling is expansive, and I reasoned that cohabiting and aiding each other wouldn't be unfavorable. With Anna's assistance, the new living arrangement was progressing smoothly. Anna was assisting with half of the household chores, which made my responsibilities much more manageable. My spouse and I resolved to contribute $3,000 each month to assist with the household expenditures. Although it's a substantial sum for someone working part-time, I desired to support the family to the greatest extent possible. However, I commenced observing alterations in Anna. She frequently mentioned, "I'm feeling a bit unwell," and requested my help with household tasks. Initially, I thought it was typical for individuals to have good and bad days, so I assisted her. But I started to sense something was amiss. She appeared quite well during meals, and she frequently went out during the day. Maybe she was presently feeling well. I inquired Anna, "I regret to ask, but I'm a tad curious. Are you genuinely feeling unwell? You frequently go out, so have you been improving?" I inquired with a slight grin. Her eyes gleamed, and she responded rather indignantly, "What are you questioning me? Do you want me to strike you?" I was taken aback that Anna would speak to me like that, but from the tone of her words, I sensed a glimpse of her determined side from the past. Anna gazed at me with some amusement and remarked, astonished, "I just recalled the old me. Until now, I've been portraying the role of a reserved woman, but I can't endure it any longer. I'll start revealing my true self, and if you oppose, it won't end well." I pondered if Anna used to be like this in the past. I was somewhat daunted by her, but having had various experiences in my life, I summoned the courage to express to her, "Anna, please don't inconvenience me any further. This is our home, and we should be thoughtful of each other. If it leads to trouble and escalates into a crime, I won't hesitate to notify the police." Anna appeared somewhat surprised and appeared to be contemplating my words. "Oh, be quiet. What are you talking about?" And a sudden eruption startled my spouse and Kevin, who emerged wide-eyed, wondering what was happening. It was the weekend, so they appeared to have been unwinding in the living room. "What's wrong with Anna?" I casually conveyed the reason for her anger, and the expressions on my spouse's and Kevin's faces darkened. "Why don't we relax and discuss it?" my spouse proposed, and the four of us gathered. He gazed at Anna and said gently, "Maggie is surprised. Perhaps you should apologize." But Anna didn't appear inclined to accept the suggestion at all, shrugging her shoulders proudly. "Why do I need to apologize to this elderly woman? I relocated here to get some assistance with this and that, but you know what? It's completely different from my expectations. That's why I'm just a little irritated. It's okay to say anything to the useless elderly individuals, right?" The three of us were astonished by her words. We had no clue she was here for such a reason. Anna continued, "From now on, I'll do as I want. You're not needed anymore. You old people are just a nuisance. Just leave." Her words utterly infuriated me. How could I live with such an individual from now on? Not just me, my spouse was also upset, and with an expression of deep anger I had never seen before, he said, "Then we'll depart right now." I resolved in my heart to sever ties with Anna and responded, "Yes, I'll leave with you." We couldn't take the furniture and large items right away, so we decided to come back for them later, and we departed the house. Kevin decided to stay at home for the time being. He wanted to converse with Anna. I respected his decision. My spouse and I determined to change our mood and stayed at a nearby affordable hotel. It was sudden after all, and it's less tiring and more comfortable than staying at someone's house. The hotel seemed just right as a temporary shelter. The following day, I got more than 20 successive calls from Anna on my mobile phone. I considered disregarding them, but I yielded to her persistence, thinking it might be something significant, and responded just once. "Hello, Maggie, I want to speak with you." Her voice from the other end of the phone sounded indulged. I sensed a bit of playfulness or something. She acted as if nothing had occurred yesterday, and I was surprised by the contrast. I thought about Anna's multiple facets, wondering how many personalities does she have. Feeling that conversing with her over the phone would be just exhausting, I said, "I can't talk now," and quickly hung up. After that, I barred all incoming calls from Anna. My husband also blocked her contacts. Around noon, I received a call from Kevin. "Mom, you might be surprised, but I've divorced Anna." I informed her this morning after I left the house, and I've submitted the divorce papers. Her reaction was as expected, saying, "Try it if you want." But I went ahead without hesitation. I was relieved at my son's decision and was proud of his bravery. Considering Anna's various attitudes and yesterday's events, it was a natural outcome. When I told him about Anna's flirtatious phone call, he was also surprised, saying, "She did that to you too." Kevin gradually revealed more surprising facts. Anna used to act cute to try and reconcile when things weren't going well with her ex-boyfriend. It's incomprehensible that she's trying to overcome things the same way at her age. Indeed, that's unexpected. I assumed that perhaps Anna, in spite of her education, still possessed the heart of a girl. Then Kevin brought even more surprising news. Not only that Anna had another man besides me. What, really? Lately, Anna started going out more frequently. She said she was weary, but she seemed quite energetic. So I became a little suspicious and engaged a detective agency. And then I discovered she was socializing with a man I didn't know. I even obtained photographs. When I viewed the image that Kevin sent via smartphone, Anna was brightly smiling, happily interacting with a young man. The man's hair was green, and he looked somewhat stylish. When I mentioned the alimony to Anna, she reacted nonchalantly, which is just like her. Naturally, I will also demand it from the person she had an affair with. Why did she call me then? Maybe she got a little panicked. She probably didn't think I would actually leave her. She always thought I would be by her side. Perhaps she wanted to find out where you and Dad were. If she knew your location, she might be able to find mine too. I smiled and said, I have zero intention of listening to her troublesome requests, but I sincerely wanted to do my best for your happiness. Upon hearing Kevin's account, I felt it was best to maintain a distance from Anna. My spouse, Kevin, and I found a new starting point for our life. We resolved to reside in a comfortable-looking apartment, envisioning our new daily life as a trio. There were many memories in that house, but we opted to market it, considering it was somewhat too roomy for Kevin. Perhaps an apartment would be preferable. I'm thrilled about the fresh start, stated Kevin, optimistic about the new surroundings. Anna would forfeit the residence she resided in, but that was no longer our worry. When we visited our former home to gather our possessions, accompanied by a family member who willingly assisted us, she greeted us with an odd grin. I've been contemplating on my own. I need to save money, and I don't wish to make spousal support payments, so I figured it's preferable to be together. Being solitary feels isolated. How about cohabiting once more? Taken aback by her words, yet observing no sign of remorse or introspection on her actions, our patience reached its limit. Anna, I have no desire to entertain your appeals. If you want to have a serious discussion, I want you to express your emotions appropriately. And I don't appreciate your demeanor, my husband calmly informed her. Fulfill the spousal support obligations. We plan to hand over this place to new individuals, so depart. Our relationship will not revert to its previous state. I'm embarking on a new chapter, so let's both pursue our paths independently. Anna smiled ruefully. Honestly, I thought life would be simpler if I wedded Kevin since he has a steady income. But now, I genuinely care about Kevin. I want the four of us to reunite. Despite her words, our resolve to embrace the future without her was resolute. Our accompanying family member, who had remained silent until his patience wore thin, finally raised his voice. Anna, truly, you're incredible. You're terrible. If you wish to express that you're more powerful than others, then challenge me. By the way, I used to excel at judo, so I'm quite self-assured. He approached Anna with a mischievous expression, almost taunting her with his gaze. A hint of force radiated from his entire body. This relative in his early 30s was muscular and had exceptional athletic abilities. According to him, he had participated in national judo competitions. He took on the role of exerting some force on Anna during this incident. Taken aback by his commanding presence, Anna said, I don't want to engage in a conflict with you, a troubled expression on her face. Anna, why don't you consider others' feelings more before you act and speak? Also, apologize sincerely and pledge not to get involved with them anymore. Anna lowered her head slightly, like a child, and said, I apologize. I'll pack my belongings now. Additionally, I'll give away all of my unnecessary personal possessions. I'll leave immediately. So I'm sorry. With that, she hurriedly left the scene. The relative jokingly remarked, Anna is somewhat amusing, isn't she? She's bold towards people who appear weak, but she quickly retreats when faced with a slightly stronger opponent. We also shared a laugh and savored the atmosphere in that moment. After Anna departed, the moving process went more smoothly than expected, and we were able to embark on a new life in our new home. It appeared that Anna also began a new life in a new location. The conflicts between Kevin and her were gradually progressing towards a solution. Anna ultimately agreed to the spousal support quietly with the assistance of a lawyer. It appeared that the comments from her relatives truly mirrored her character. I recently learned about Anna's predicament. Although I have not met her in person, I discovered through the news on domestic violence about her apprehension. Additionally, considering the hearsay from acquaintances and neighbors, along with my own observations, I envisioned the kind of days Anna had been enduring. It appears she has been facing hardships due to the spousal support payments. Her beloved savings had nearly depleted. When she attempted to embark on a new life with the individual she was involved with, that individual abruptly ceased all communication. Subsequently, she pursued a new job but resigned shortly after due to some issues with her employer. She encountered financial hardship and even approached us, but our family kept a distance from her, so we refrained from getting entangled in her predicaments. Anna endeavored to seek assistance from old friends for her financial woes, but it seemed there was no one willing to aid her among those familiar with her. Then she provoked a significant altercation with one of them and was apprehended. Upon learning about her situation afterward, we felt she should be remorseful. She had engaged in various activities in the past, so it had eventually led to this. She has frequently caused disturbances since her school days, so I trust she acknowledges this stern reality and contemplates her actions. Our family is enjoying our days at leisure, the three of us as parents and son. We have intentions to go on a trip together, and we are eagerly anticipating it. Getting on famously. Our present abode, the flat, is more compact than a residence, so it doesn't require much time to tidy, and it's convenient to reside in because of its prime location. Ever since relocating here, our everyday existence has become even more pleasurable. I aim to keep generating numerous enjoyable moments with my family. That's accurate regarding your father's legacy. Emily and I will assume control of all the remaining possessions. My mother informed me about this immediately after my father's burial. To be frank, I had no desire to discuss the inheritance on the day my father passed away. However, Emily Everly initiated the conversation with eager eyes. There's a will as well. Emily continued the discussion while presenting the will proudly. Just after Dad went to the hospital, Mom and I visited his room and had him write this. Dad immediately agreed to leave neither inheritance nor anything to you, sis. Dad did that, yeah, he did that, even though he always relied on you. I know it's too harsh. It's pitiful for you, isn't it? But certainly, Dad always found me more agreeable and favored me. No way. Before I could say anything else, my mother continued cheerfully, you who have no job, we have no intention of giving you a single penny from the inheritance. We'll be enjoying a trip abroad, so prepare to leave this house by the time we return. Wait, how can I accept this? Why would you do such a thing without giving me a chance to speak? Mom and Emily responded coldly, be quiet. It's impossible for you to get anything from us now that Dad's gone. We can finally act freely. Your role here is done, so leave immediately. All the sacrifices you've made for Dad, all you've done for him, and this is the result. How cruel! Giving everything for such an ungrateful father was pointless. Even if you wish for our assistance now, it's belated. Upon hearing those words, any remaining familial sentiments toward my mother and Emily completely vanished. I couldn't embrace what they said about my father, whom I deeply admired. Without articulating all I desired to convey to my mother and Emily, I replied, I comprehend. I cannot remain with you two any further. I will willingly depart. Subsequently, I departed for my childhood abode. My appellation is Ashley. I possess a sister, Emily, who is 4 years junior to me. We constitute a family of 4 with our 2 parents. Emily's disposition resembles that of our mother's. She is agreeable, but at times indolent. She frequently taunted my father and me, who possess earnest dispositions. Our mother, possessing a temperament akin to Emily, exhibited particular fondness for her during our formative years. It was apparent she favored Emily over me. Whenever she encountered her acquaintances, my mother would exclusively take Emily with her, often excluding me. At home, according to her, it is disgraceful to present unassuming and reserved Ashley to my acquaintances. Conversely, my mother was exceedingly proud of Emily, who was amiable and endeared by everyone. Despite having such a mother and sister, the rationale I could lead my life optimistically was due to my father. He esteemed my sincerity and also cherished Emily equally. I profoundly valued and loved my father's equitable approach. Even subsequent to attaining adulthood, my mother's treatment of me remained unaltered. Nonetheless, owing to my father's presence, our household remained steady. However, subsequent to my father's retirement at 65, an occurrence and incident took place at the residence. He stumbled over a small staircase in the dwelling and fractured his bone. Despite making an effort with surgery and rehabilitation, his aging muscles did not recuperate easily. As he spent more time confined to bed and required assistance, my mother and Emily became even more distant towards him. "Hey Mom, what do you think about this?" "Yeah, it looks good. The food seems delicious too. Maybe we should go with this one." While perusing a guidebook, my mother and Emily conversed eagerly. "What are you discussing?" When I inquired, my mother responded with a hint of irritation. "We're planning for a family trip, but considering Dad's mobility challenges, isn't traveling hard for him?" In response to my remark, Emily said with a grin, "Well, we're not considering bringing him in the first place. We plan to leave him at home." "That's heartless. It would be difficult for him if he's left alone. If Dad's not coming, I will stay home with him." After I stated this, my mother and Emily simply smiled at each other. Following that, my mother said, "That's acceptable as well. If that's the situation, Emily and I will just go by ourselves. Whether you two come or not is up to you, but since it's a family trip, we'll be using funds from Dad's bank account." A brief look at the guidebook revealed they had selected a room intended for only 2 people. It was evident they had never intended to bring either my father or me along. After that, my mother and Emily frequently went out by themselves, staying at high-quality inns or dining at reputable establishments. Eateries, it was almost as if my father and I were invisible in the residence. I observed their behavior from afar, striving to complete my tasks as swiftly as possible in order to attend to my father. When I couldn't manage everything on my own, I enlisted the help of care services for duties such as aiding with bathing or accompanying my father on brief strolls around the area. On occasions when I had to work extra hours, I requested my mother and Emily to look after my father, but they evaded the responsibility. "Hello, I've come to assist with the bath, but is there no one home today?" Upon receiving a notification from the care service personnel, I promptly called my mother and Emily. Despite having informed them in advance of the staff's visit, they had left my father unattended and gone out. When they eventually returned home, I confronted them, but there was no apology from them. "The personnel are experts, right? It's fine even if we're not present. Dad is an adult. He'll be fine being left alone." We don't want our time occupied caring for him like you." It seemed they genuinely believed they were doing nothing wrong. I realized I couldn't depend on them and determined that taking care of my father was my responsibility. I managed work and caregiving. The daily routine was far from simple, especially since neither my mother nor Emily displayed any concern or empathy. My father's condition deteriorated as the days passed. He spent more time seated than walking and consumed much less. As the 9th year of tending to my father approached, I grew worried about how fragile he appeared. When I brought him to the hospital, I received a startling diagnosis. "Your father has advanced cancer. It cannot be." I realized that we might not have much time left with him. Determined to assist him in his final days, I resigned from my job to look after him full-time. I knew I had to inform my mother and Emily. Their responses were unexpected. When I relayed his condition to them, my mother remarked, "Really? He never drank or smoked. It's unfortunate that such an honest person ended up with cancer." Emily, with a shocked expression, said, "I can't believe you'd give up your job to take care of Dad. I'd never make that choice. I thought they would be concerned about him, but they showed no signs of it at all." I was genuinely surprised by their indifference, as if it was someone else's business. In the end, the two of them only visited him at the hospital for a brief time and never truly came to pay a proper visit. I supported him daily during his chemotherapy treatments. Despite our best efforts, we couldn't halt the cancer's progression, and half a year later, he passed away. The days after the diagnosis went by in a haze. Upon learning of his death, my mother and Emily began a private discussion and left me to organize the funeral on my own. Then they vanished somewhere. I didn't even have time to grieve for my father, as I had to arrange the funeral alone. As the funeral commenced, my mother appeared and began to deliver the principal mourner's address. Despite having accomplished nothing, she maintained a facade for the public. I was annoyed by her conduct, but the funeral proceeded smoothly. Exhausted as I made my way home, I was summoned to the living room by my mother and Emily, who had already returned, stating they had something to discuss. Without any regard for my fatigue, my mother suddenly announced, "Concerning your father's estate, Emily and I will inherit this house and all other assets." Honestly, I wasn't in the mood to discuss inheritance on the very day my father passed away. However, Emily Everly added, "We even have a valid will." Look, she proudly presented a document and began to explain. Right after Dad was admitted to the hospital, Mom and I visited him and had him sign this. It states that you won't inherit anything. Dad agreed to it immediately. With a smirk, Emily said, "After all the assistance you provided, it's so heartless, isn't it?" Maybe Dad, in the end, favored me over his two responsible elder daughters. "That's impossible." Before I could respond, my mother interrupted with an inappropriate smile. "Clearly, Emily is more endearing, though your father always stayed home and had no hobbies. He surely saved a lot, right? Mom even quit her job because of the inheritance, and I took some time off work to enjoy the inheritance for a while." Before I could say anything, the two of them continued their conversation. My mother then informed me, "You who have no job won't get a penny from the inheritance. We intend to enjoy a vacation overseas for some time, so you need to vacate this place by then." I quickly responded, "Hold on. Do you truly believe what you're doing is right?" If that's the case, without letting me finish, both my mother and Emily firmly replied, "Be quiet. It's futile to try to claim the inheritance from us. With your father gone, we'll do as we please. Your role here is finished. Kindly leave this house promptly." To think that after all you sacrificed for Dad, this is what you get. There was no need to go to such lengths for such an incompetent father. It's pointless to regret and dwell on it now. Hearing those words, any remaining bond I felt for my mother and Emily was completely broken. I couldn't forgive them for speaking that way about my beloved father. Holding back what I wanted to say, I calmly informed them, "I understand your perspective. From now on, I can't envision living together with you two. I'll willingly depart." Despite their initial surprise at my acceptance, the two soon smiled smugly together. "Good to know. Once you leave this house, never depend on us again. Our relationship ends here. Whatever happens to you, we want no part in it. Don't even think of reaching out to us." Receiving this intense sentiment from my mother, I packed only my essentials and left the house. A few days after the inheritance discussion, something happened. The unexpected call came from my mother, who had asserted she would sever contact with me. When I answered, I was met with fury. "What have you carried out? Where has all the funds from your father's account vanished to? Why are you abruptly calling? Didn't you state you wouldn't get in touch with me?" Silence. "This is an urgent situation. Give back your father's savings right away." "What are you speaking about? I left the passbook at the old residence, didn't I? I have no means of reaching it after I departed, but the money in the account is undeniably gone. Such a substantial amount of his savings couldn't have vanished so suddenly. I found it suspicious. When you were able to depart so swiftly without a job, it appeared my mother had assumed that I had wasted my father's money." "Mom, haven't you ever checked the account balance before?" "Huh? I haven't bothered with such things." "I see. If you had, you would have noticed that Dad's savings weren't that much to begin with." "What do you mean, his savings where?" "Where did his retirement funds go?" "Oh, we utilized it for our wedding ceremony and the new residence." "Wedding? New residence? I have no clue what you're talking about. I had been in a romantic relationship with a man named Sean, who was in charge of the caregiving service for my father. Our relationship started through our mutual care for my father. I had informed my father about my relationship with Sean shortly after we began dating. Sean proposed. At that time, I was overwhelmed with caregiving and work responsibilities and couldn't make a decision. Upon learning the truth, my father said, "Care for yourself more than me." I won in order to achieve a happy marriage. He encouraged and supported me. Despite my doubts, he even began assisting with the selection of the wedding venue and searching for a new place to live. We had set a wedding date for the next year and also signed a contract for a new apartment that my father approved of. All of this occurred 6 months before we learned about his terminal cancer. As a token of appreciation, my father covered most of the expenses for the wedding and the new apartment. This was the cause of the decrease in the account balance. Upon hearing the turn of events, my mother's voice trembled. She was clearly shaken. "So there wasn't any inheritance for us to receive in the first place?" "Mainly just the family home, but considering its location, we shouldn't anticipate a high selling price." Emily, who had overheard the conversation, grabbed the phone from my mother in panic. "Wait. So the financial aid for your wedding is much greater than the inheritance for Mom and me? That appears to be the situation. Dad was aware of my marriage and my departure from the house, so perhaps he didn't see an issue in leaving the family home to both of you. He might have allocated a significant amount for me and intended the inheritance to compensate for that. Could it be that the reason you resigned from your job was because your marriage had been decided upon?" "That's correct. Sean is also engaged in investment activities and is financially secure. He wanted me to become a full-time homemaker. Additionally, I thought if I resigned early, I could concentrate on looking after our father. I cannot believe it. Why did you conceal the information about your marriage and savings from us?" Inhaling deeply, I responded, "I contemplated informing you multiple times, but each time, neither of you displayed any interest and evaded the subject. Why did you not prevent me from taking the hiatus from work or Mom from resigning her part-time job? How are we meant to survive now? When I sought to converse with you after the funeral, was it not you and Mom who dismissed me, stating you cannot anticipate anything from us, but I believe relatives should support each other? Family, when I was overwhelmed with work and caregiving, you were out enjoying yourselves, disregarding Dad. How can I consider someone who uttered such unkind remarks as family? Do not simply utter whatever is expedient for you. Stunned and at a loss for words, Emily was surprised. Later, my mother implored with me, Ashley, the reality is, I have already paid for the journey. I also made various purchases, anticipating the inheritance. So now I have no savings remaining. So what of it? I have already resigned from my part-time job, correct? If we do not receive any inheritance funds, we will not have any money for next month. So until I secure a new job, I hope you can loan us some. When you evicted me from the family residence, did you not declare you would never approach me again, that our connection was terminated, that you would not meddle with whatever befalls me in the future? Regarding that, neither of you ever assisted when Dad and I were enduring challenging times. Now that you're facing difficulties, do you expect me to be your support? That's remarkably audacious. But if you refuse to assist us now, what other options do we have? I promptly ended the call and blocked their numbers without allowing my mother to finish. I was thoroughly repulsed by my mother and sister, who only acknowledged our relationship when they are in trouble. I made the decision to create some distance between myself and these two. Later, I learned from various sources that despite my mother and Emily canceling their trip, they were unable to receive a refund due to it being a last-minute cancellation. They have been struggling financially, seeking money from friends and relatives. They had to sell their house, but as I anticipated, they did not receive as much money as they had hoped for. After covering the initial expenses for a new place and moving costs, they had very little money remaining. Emily went back to work, but her relationships with her colleagues became strained because she had asked them for money. She had intended to leave her job after finding a suitable partner, but due to the circumstances, that partner and other men distanced themselves. Her friends also distanced themselves. My mother attempted to find another part-time job, but her previous workplace had already hired someone else, making it difficult for her to return. Because of her age, her job prospects were limited. She has been working hard, facing complaints from younger colleagues. Currently, they are managing their living expenses with my mother's modest part-time salary and Emily's earnings, slowly paying off their debts. Both of them appear exhausted. As for me, I managed to hold an intimate wedding at the location my father selected. The only sorrow is that my father couldn't attend my wedding, but I think he's observing our joyful moments from somewhere. My marital life with Sean has been more seamless than anticipated. We're relishing tranquil and satisfying days together. I'm endlessly thankful to my father for backing my connection with Sean and affording me this chance. I've had to construct a serene life with my spouse, always keeping in mind my appreciation to my father. It's not uncommon for families to have disagreements or face financial challenges. However, some families are able to stay united and carry on with their daily routines. I don't think it's necessary to compare which family is happier. My name is Lily. Since I was young, people have called me an unusual child. I'm not sure what makes me different. I only feel that way because others tell me so. It's okay to be called strange, but the issue is that my parents avoid me because of it. My childhood was lonely, and I became so attuned to people's thoughts that I could understand what they were thinking. I don't know how I can do it. It's not that I couldn't see or sense everything, but I couldn't comprehend why I had this ability. It felt so natural to me, like how ordinary people move their hands or breathe. Once, I sensed a negative emotion or a presence from a colleague whom my father had brought home. I felt that we needed to be cautious around that person. I warned my mother, but she dismissed me. Later, the colleague convinced my father to co-sign a debt agreement. My mother didn't believe me, but as my father was leaving the room with the colleague, I said, "Something tells me that the phrase joint and several is risky. I'm not sure what solidarity means, but be careful." As a result, my father hesitantly chose not to sign as a co-guarantor, and when his colleague went bankrupt and couldn't repay his debts, my father did not bear the entire weight. On another occasion, while shopping with my mother, I sensed a feeling of unease creeping up behind me. I turned around to see a man in sunglasses and a hat emitting that feeling. "Mom, let's go that way," I said, taking her hand as we walked down a side street. She was puzzled, but as we moved, we heard a cry of "I've been robbed" from the main street. The man who had been emitting those negative vibes had snatched a woman's bag right in front of us and fled. The woman collapsed and was injured. My mother could have been his target if we had stayed on the sidewalk. My parents started avoiding me because this happened so often. I felt very isolated. What was normal to me was not normal to others. I was the odd and eerie child, so I kept my thoughts to myself. Even if something felt wrong, I stopped expressing it, afraid people would think I was crazy. I realized that if I didn't say anything, I would blend in, and no one would think I was strange. My younger sister, Sophie, is 3 years my junior. She is a typical child, unlike me, who is growing more somber with each passing year. She is becoming more lovable and charming. She was raised with love from my guardians. Guardians evidently favored my younger sister over me. Sophie is a delightful young woman, but Lily is mysterious and dim. Lily is an unusual child, even though she no longer utters anything peculiar. I'm not going to claim I've ceased expressing odd things or perceiving things only I can perceive. It was something I fabricated to cope. I was weary of the agony this ability was inflicting on me, and I was exerting every effort to manage it. I matured without my guardian's affection. It was either because my endeavors to feign normalcy conveyed the impression that I was extraordinary, or because once this extraordinary perception was affixed to me, it could not be obliterated. My younger sister, conversely, was nurtured with my guardian's affection. My indulged sister sensed my guardian's chilliness and slight aloofness from me and began to look down on me. She used to say, "I don't enjoy being around my sister because it transfers the gloominess to me." I'm very appealing, but my sister has an adverse effect on my reputation. She commenced making disparaging remarks about me whenever she had the opportunity. My guardians only tolerated her and made no effort to rectify her. She was approached by a talent scout for an entertainment production company in town. She was invited to join their agency when I was in my 2nd year of junior high, and she was in her 5th year of elementary school. She declared, "It's evident because I'm attractive." They said I could be on television. My younger sister was already contemplating a career that fulfilled our parents. You need to take it steady and contemplate it. I have a negative feeling about this. I didn't want my sister to be in trouble, so I disclosed my emotions, which I had concealed for so long. My sister, who was unaware of my uncommon capability, said, "Are you reprimanding me because you're not appealing and can't interact with others like me? Don't be peculiar and don't obstruct me." Her face turned crimson and she reached for me. My parents, who were aware of my capability, had either forgotten about it or were delighted to see their little daughter in the limelight, and they stood by her side accusing me. I then reaffirmed my decision to remain silent. I convinced myself that speaking was unnecessary and would lead to nothing positive. An educational internship student was set to visit my middle school one day. He was a male college student, a junior high graduate who aimed to be a physical education teacher. The trainee talked about his educational aspirations and delivered a compelling speech to the teachers and students. He became very popular with the teachers and students, especially the female students. As the intern responded promptly to the enthusiastic voices of the female students, I felt a dark wave of dread wash over me. I had made it a rule to keep myself hidden and not disclose my uncommon abilities, but when I saw that my classmates were in peril, I decided to break my own rule. I approached a teacher who seemed to comprehend what I was saying. "I know this is unanticipated, but please trust me and assist me," I pleaded. The educator was puzzled by my sudden declaration, but he complied with my request and monitored a specific area after school. I withheld the specifics from the teacher. I refrained from disclosing them because there was no way he would trust me even if I did. However, the teacher heeded me without any explanation. He might have been more than a simpleton. The following day, the entire school was in an uproar. The nuisance prevention ordinance had been breached by the student trainee. The teacher had monitored the vicinity near the women's restroom, and the trainee was observed entering the women's restroom. He installed a video camera within 15 minutes of commencing the stakeout. The teacher successfully prevented the occurrence. Consequently, the female students were not victims of voyeurism and were not embarrassed. Meanwhile, my younger sister was recruited by an entertainment agency and eagerly joined the agency. Yet there were no classes or even an audition. She was only required to pay expensive affiliation and lesson fees. The office was then suddenly closed one day. In short, my sister was exploited. She yelled and cried, directing her anger towards me. "It's all because of you. You ruined my future. It's entirely your fault." It was an absurd statement, but my sister appeared to believe it wholeheartedly. She had to think that way to survive, but it was a disaster to me. I did not make such ridiculous remarks. However, they observed that she was distancing herself from me and favoring our younger sister. Being an unusual child, I was about to encounter solitude once more. I felt satisfied for having aided everyone at school, but I feared that my actions might push me to the limit. The next day, the teacher who had listened to my story called me to the faculty room. As I entered the room, I was afraid of being labeled as peculiar again. "You anticipated something like this happening about a week ago, didn't you?" the teacher whispered to me. Without any warning, I realized it was futile to try to deceive him, so I confided in him about my enigmatic ability. After all, I know there are not many people like that out there. It was the first time I had encountered someone who understood what I was going through. The teacher disclosed that he knew someone with my level of ability, which is why he empathized with me. He revealed, "That individual is actually my aunt, and I've been aware of her for a long time. I comprehend that you have a lot on your mind. I'm certain you'll feel much better if you seek guidance from someone in your situation." The teacher introduced me to the person. After uttering this, the person gazed into my eyes and said, "It's natural to be worried, but you don't have to endure it." Her gentle yet profound eyes, which appeared to perceive everything, captivated me. Sarah was the person's name. He informed me that she had possessed the same ability as I did since childhood, and that she had dedicated her entire life distressed and concealing herself. The tale of the elder individual who had undergone similar experiences to mine was liberating me from my fears and uncertainties. My interaction with Sarah commenced on that day. I referred to her as my guide, but she chuckled and responded, "Will you not call me Sarah? Or rather, my guide?" Sarah transformed my life. I had lived a humble, shadowy existence, hiding who I was, but my awareness was altered. I was gradually able to live my everyday life as a regular girl. However, since the episode at the entertainment agency, I have been unable to get close to my sister. In fact, we seemed to be drifting apart rather than closer. It was typical for her not to converse with me, and the only time she did was to grumble about something she didn't deserve or to mock me. I have no clue what triggers the change. My psychic abilities also failed to anticipate my sister's emotional shifts. She used to say, "What's the big deal about you getting accepted to college? Aren't you just a mental flower garden?" My sister had failed the high school entrance exam at her first choice school, which she had been assured she would definitely pass. She was able to enroll at an alternative in a high school that she considered her second choice. Consequently, my sister was furious that I had been admitted to her preferred university. I wasn't pleased about it, and I wasn't boasting about it to my sister. She was simply making assumptions and disrespecting me. My parents only comforted my sister during a challenging period, but she instructed me to leave and not disturb her. Despite my personal growth since meeting my teacher, it seemed that my sister still did not like me. I pondered that she only appreciates me when I conform to her preference for a somber and inferior woman. Conversely, my sister possesses exceptional intelligence. Although she struggled with the high school entrance exam, she channeled her frustration into her studies at the high school she eventually attended. Consequently, she excelled as the top student for 3 years and gained admission to a prestigious national university on her first attempt. When she proudly mentioned her achievement, I responded with a casual acknowledgement. I was mindful of the potential consequences of becoming too involved in the conversation. However, my sister perceived my response as a slight against her intelligence and reacted vehemently. My parents, fearful of my sister's temper tantrums, could only watch and worry whenever she became upset. They blamed me for the situation and labeled me as a deceitful and troubled daughter. I yearned to dispute their judgment and defend myself, but I chose to remain silent in order to avoid further complications. Apart from my sister, I was approaching the conclusion of my university studies and had to make a choice about my future. I'm not as gloomy and reclusive as I used to be, but I'm still not outgoing, and I question my ability to establish successful connections with others. My skill is to perceive people's pessimistic emotions. I can comprehend optimistic feelings, but individuals are more inclined to negative emotions, and negative thoughts affect me. I have been buffeted by swirling negative emotions in school, and I was on the brink of mistrusting people. I was worried if I could excel in a corporate environment. I talked about this with my advisor. I was sure she had encountered similar obstacles, and I wanted to understand how she overcame them. She said, "I went through the same challenges that you are facing now. Perhaps you should do something like me." She informed me that she had spent a considerable amount of time working as a fortune teller or counselor, aiding people with their issues. I have the capacity to fully display my abilities and contribute to the world and others. Since I can work independently, I don't have to be part of an organization, and I don't have to handle people's emotions or relationships, both of which I am apprehensive about. It's the perfect position for individuals like us. I chose to pursue the same occupation at the urging of my advisor. She demonstrated to me how to perform the job and attract clients. Thanks to the internet, I can now work from home. When I informed my parents and younger sibling that instead of securing employment after graduation, they informed me that I should work from home. I was curious about the nature of the job and the type of work involved. They also suggested that I should take care of the housework at the very least. I was expecting my parents to react that way, but I was disheartened by their lack of support. Although I thought it was normal for them to expect me to do housework and contribute financially, I still felt upset. As a result, I could foresee my sister disrespecting me even more in the future, which made me even sadder. Thus, my life as a remote worker began. Initially, there were no job opportunities, and it was a process of trial and error, but with the guidance of my mentor, I gradually secured employment. I couldn't fulfill my father's request to contribute financially to the household for about a year, so I focused my energy on housework. My father was displeased, but my mother was relieved that things were getting easier, and she kept him in check. When I finally contributed financially to the household after about a year, my father mocked me, saying, "Finally got some money, didn't you?" However, even with the financial contribution, the amount of household chores he shared with me did not increase, and my life remained unchanged. 2 years later, my sister graduated from university and decided to work for a foreign-affiliated company. Since it was a foreign company, the pay was good, and she remarked, "Unlike my sister, I am not part of the elite." My sister, who found work outside of home, has made fun of me. The fact that I work from home. She expressed, "I have no clue what you're doing working from home. Isn't that just for fun? You're a freeloader in your own home. My salary will increase, and I'm certain I'll be making 10 times more than my sister. Someone like you could never earn that much money," she stated. My sister, who was promoted to chief after a year and a half with the company, also informed me about it and ridiculed me. My sister boasts about her good salary, but she doesn't contribute anything to the household and doesn't assist with any of the household chores. She assigned laundry, cleaning, meal preparation, and everything else to my mother and me. The workload was split between my mother and myself, but my mother assigned most of the work to me, so essentially, I was the one doing all the work. I said, Sophie, you need to take better care of yourself. Instead of spending it all on yourself, you should put some money into the house. I notified her, but then she said, you're a waste of space, sister. You should do all of our housework. I'm putting the money aside for my future. She never pays attention to me. For some inexplicable reason, my parents tactically agree with her, asserting that it can't be helped because she's my sister. I wanted to remain in my current job because it was comfortable and familiar, but I was starting to ponder what I should do with myself. My sister then made a surprising announcement. I'm getting married. He is a wealthy man who earns more than $10 million per year. Oh, I apologize. I became elated first sibling, but isn't marriage just a fantasy for a person like you? My sister mentioned she would bring her partner the next Sunday. When he arrived, we were in a state of alarm due to the rapid series of events. The man she brought with her was a young man dressed in a formal attire who seemed capable. Greetings, my name is John, and it's a delight to meet you. I have come to propose to Sophie. He greeted us with grace and courtesy. I told you he was remarkable, and he is, isn't he? I will be happy with him, my sister said. My father, despite being overwhelmed by her boyfriend's presence, asked to query John, what is your occupation? I am presently undergoing instruction at a firm owned by an acquaintance of my father's, my sister explained tearfully. When I was puzzled by the term, my sister explained, his father is the company's president. He is training outside of the company to be his successor in the future. My sister seemed thrilled at the idea of marrying the company's future president. After that, we discussed various subjects before Sophie's boyfriend courageously departed. Despite a few gaps in the subsequent conversation, my parents seemed content with the impressive man. However, John, who seemed youthful and vibrant, cast an indescribable shadow of darkness on me. I'm not sure how to articulate it, but I'm the one who can sense it. Unable to remain silent any longer, fearing that marrying a man with this kind of darkness would make my sister was not pleased, I spoke out. Listen, Sophie, you've only been seeing him for less than 3 months, so get to understand him a little better before you decide to marry him. My instincts were alert, so I couldn't articulate and tried to reassure my sister by saying something ambiguous. What exactly are you talking about, sister? He is a man of great distinction and a potential president. He is a distinguished individual and the company's future president. You're just upset because you compare your situation to my happiness. You're a pitiful person, aren't you? My sister retorted. My parents also shouted at me to get out of their way because such a wealthy man would soon be their son. Because you're a nobody, you should at least stop interfering with your sister's happiness. My parents' plan was obvious. Let their daughter marry a wealthy man and live in peace in their old age. My mind raced with anger because I couldn't tell my sister about the black shadow that was attacking her. In the meantime, they got engaged, and a meeting between the two families took place. My sister's fiance's parents were dressed in the same fresh breeze as John, but the same black clouds seemed to be hiding behind them again. However, the wedding day arrived before I could warn my sister and parents who were too excited. You know, the president of our company is attending today's reception. Do you know how talented and promising I am? It's a great honor, but I know that you, my little stay-at-home sister, I can't even fathom how fantastic it is, my sister remarked before departing the residence. As usual, she appended a few disrespectful remarks towards me. They exchanged vows of eternal love at the hotel's wedding hall and then proceeded to the reception area. My sister appeared joyful with a wide smile on her face, and I observed her with concern regarding how long that joy would endure. The company's president, my sister mentioned, would deliver the address as the distinguished guest. It was a congratulatory speech, so naturally, it was a speech that praised my sister, and she was content with it. Following the conclusion of all the congratulatory speeches, refreshments and food were served to each table. The cuisine appeared delectable, but I started to feel increasingly uneasy. I began to feel uneasy because nothing had been served to my table. Initially, I thought it was simply a delay, but other tables had already received beverages and appetizers one after another. It was evidently peculiar. I was the sole individual who had not received anything. The individuals at the same table also noted the oddity and started to feel uneasy. At that moment, my sister approached me and whispered with a chuckle in my ear, "Complimentary food isn't intended for individuals like you. I mean, this fare is too exquisite for you. You should just depart and have some potato chips at home. Just leave our wedding present and go home," my sister declared. My eyebrows rose at the audacious statement uttered loudly in my ear. The groom was also grinning and nodding enthusiastically, the groom's chair. Even my folks pretended to be astonished at first, but when they uttered something like, well, Sophie is correct, I was taken aback at first, but that astonishment was followed by a surge of fury. "I never imagined you could be this unreasonable. Father and mother, you are excessive. How could you tolerate such impoliteness?" My parents gave me a bitter gaze, but did not reprimand my sister. "I comprehend. I am going home, but know this, you'll regret it." "What's with that warning?" "I wonder if it's the cry of a loser," my sister scoffed. The hall was abuzz with excitement at this incredible turn of events. A man stood up with a start. "I'm the groom's sibling. My name is David. My brother and parents are scum, but the bride is even more so." "I can't take it," the man, who introduced himself as David, continued. "Father, your company went bankrupt half a year ago, and you're still falsely claiming to be the president of it. The fact that you are still pretending to be the president of this company must mean that you are trying to take advantage of your daughter-in-law and her family. John, you can't be president anymore either, but you're still faking it and trying to sleaze off your wife, aren't you? Because you're unemployed now." The buzz in the hall heated up at the man's comments, but the younger sister became even more heated. "What do you mean you cheated me? What do you mean you're unemployed?" She turned bright red and asked a series of questions. Her face gradually turned from crimson to azure, and her eyes started to well up. My folks were also out of the loop, and both of them were yelling. The shouts of my family reverberated through the hall. Both the bridegroom and the groom's parents were astonished and quiet. In reality, before the performance commenced, I had received David's admission and regret. I had urged him not to hesitate to express his thoughts if something occurred during the celebration. Then, as my sister was accusing David with a visage full of fury and bitterness, another man rose with a look that indicated he could not endure it any longer. It was the CEO of my sister's company. "Enough of this, it's not appearing favorable. You have no authority to censure the groom. What gives you the right to condemn the groom's brother or his ill treatment of his brother?" The boss's voice was brimming with rage, and she looked alarmed. "I didn't attend your ceremony for your benefit," she stated. "If you weren't Lally's sister, to whom I am indebted, I wouldn't be here." My sister's eyes widened when the CEO suddenly mentioned my name. "Oh, Lily. Lily has rescued numerous companies from crisis. She is like a deity among us business proprietors. Under my mentor's guidance, I began as a soothsayer and life advisor, and then evolved into a counselor for corporate rejuvenation. Despite lacking managerial expertise, I have utilized my abilities to guide the company in the right direction. I was spot on, and one after another, the companies that sought my help rejuvenated their corporate tension, and their business encountered incredible recoveries. Because of this, I have been given the designations of instructor and deity. My sibling's firm was also sought advice from half a year ago, and with my guidance, it was revitalized as a more robust company. The CEO of the company felt indebted to me and attended today's nuptials, she remarked. Oh dear, I had no knowledge of that. Aren't you a stay-at-home entity? Thanks to Lily, my business is thriving. Thanks to you, I have a decent occupation and now earn more than you do. I contributed enough funds to the household, but my parents are indifferent to me. What do you reckon all that money was for? Oh, that money wasn't Sophie's. The parents appear to have misinterpreted. There was no way she could have brought money into the household. The wedding celebration dissolved into a state of confusion. Naturally, the wedding present was completely reimbursed to everyone. How are we going to finance this ceremony now that we don't have all the money from the presents? Furthermore, I had relied on John's earnings and signed an agreement for a flat in my name. I can't afford the rent by myself if I'm out of work. To the weeping sister, John stated, You signed the agreement on your own, didn't you? She responded, I have no knowledge of it. Separation, 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 you swindler. The wedding turned out to be chaotic. This was also the consequence of his spite towards others for no reason at all. He might have asserted that he had a cause to be spiteful, but there was no way that would have been acceptable. Afterwards, the younger sibling ended her marriage with John and requested spousal support. John, who was jobless, and his parents could not afford to pay a large sum of spousal support. Even though they could barely afford the wedding venue, it was far from enough to cover the cost of the condominium they had agreed to. The house that was supposed to be their love nest was never occupied and got canceled. However, the loan remained unpaid, becoming a heavy burden on the younger sister. Furthermore, the scandalous conduct at the wedding quickly became known to the company executives present, causing the sister to lose credibility. The company president gave up on her and demoted her. She no longer had a place at the company and lost her pride as a top employee. She wanted to resign and escape, but she had to keep working there in order to repay the loan. She continued working in an underground reference room, performing menial tasks that may or may not be significant. John and his parents failed in their effort to live off my younger sister. They too were striving to make ends meet by working regular jobs. Naturally, the older brother David had distanced himself from his parents and younger sibling. My parents had easily given up on my sister, who had hit rock bottom, and they turned to me. But I told them I no longer want to be controlled by you guys. I'm going to disconnect from you. Farewell. With that statement, I departed from my residence, finalized a rental agreement for a new apartment, and embarked on a fresh existence. I welcomed my sibling, who had encountered difficult circumstances, and started to experience challenges in managing my finances. My sister's income had been significantly reduced, and she was unable to contribute financially to our parents' home. Naturally, I also ceased the financial support I had been providing for our parents' home. My parents, who were unable to quickly adjust their standard of living, became weary and voiced their discontent on a daily basis. My enterprise is thriving, and I am positively impacting numerous businesses and individuals. Truth be told, I commenced a romantic relationship with David following the wedding episode, and he recently invited me to go out with him. If current circumstances persist, marriage is on the horizon. I cannot help but anticipate cultivating happiness with David, who possesses a pure heart devoid of any hidden agendas. We no longer require your services. You are a freeloader who works from home. My sister's remarks were echoed by my parents. I am tired of being treated as an inconvenience, along with my dog. If they continue with this attitude, I will do as I please. This marked the beginning of my plan for retaliation. My name is Kathy, a 33-year-old unmarried woman. I am employed as a self-employed web designer. I can complete my tasks with just a laptop, so I do not work outside. I have a designated area at home, and I work at my own speed. Despite having a fantastic job, my peace was disrupted 2 years ago by my father and mother. One day, while I was working at home, my parents paid me a visit. Upon entering the house, they surveyed the room and initiated the following dialogue. "Mother, this house is quite spacious. It seems like we could reside here as well. Indeed, there even appears to be an extra room. Moreover, it is wasteful for Kathy to live in such a nice house alone. Yes, let's do that." Disregarding my presence, my parents made all the decisions on their own. I had no desire to live with them and clearly informed them, "Wait a moment. I have no intention of residing with you. What are you suggesting?" My father, his face turning red, shouted at me, "You took over this house, claiming you wanted it from your uncle, trying to make it yours. There is a limit to how low you can go. I had a proper discussion with uncle, and he gave it to me. Do not make excuses. In any case, our former residence is deteriorating. Your mother and I will relocate here during the upcoming weekend. However, this residence was gifted to me by my paternal uncle who adored me. The property is still registered under my uncle's name, but he permitted me to utilize it as I wish. As per my father, the ancestral home has aged significantly, and a comprehensive refurbishment is necessary if we are to continue residing there. My mother is a homemaker, and my father's income isn't substantial, so renovation is not feasible. That is why they have turned their attention to this property that I had inherited from my uncle. I was not particularly enthusiastic about it, but my parents had already made the decision to sell their own home and claimed to have no other place to go. I couldn't abandon them, so I reluctantly began living with them. However, as soon as they moved in, my parents started making sardonic remarks towards me. "Hello, Kathy, aren't you already over 30? Don't you have any intentions of getting married? I am currently content with my job. Persist in speaking like that, and you will never find a spouse. Why not learn something from your sister? Isn't my sister's marital life facing difficulties? Nevertheless, I am satisfied for the time being." At this point, my mother, who had been eavesdropping, interjected, "Hey, refrain from speaking ill of your sister in that manner. Unlike you, she is married and is even employed by a company you know. I may not be married, but I am also performing satisfactorily in my job. You are always just idling on your computer. You are probably engaging in futile activities. Money through some dubious methods, aren't you?" "Dubious methods? I'm earning a living through legitimate work. No need to be concerned. How dare you speak in opposition to your mother? You truly are the complete opposite of your sister." That's how it was. My parents constantly compared me and my sister. Sure, my sister works for a company, but she's just a temporary worker in an office job. I don't look down on temporary workers, but I certainly earn more than she does. I understand that people from my parents' generation don't quite grasp the concept of working from home, but it was still hurtful to be constantly belittled. Then one day, a friend of mine had a litter of 4 puppies, and I decided to adopt one of them. I named him Muffin. He's a little black chihuahua with the most adorable round eyes. When he looks at me, he wags his tail as if it might break off. Owning a chihuahua has been a dream of mine since I was a child. Working from home can be lonely, so I thought Muffin could provide some much-needed comfort. From today onwards, you're Muffin, okay. Woof. I didn't particularly consult with my family when I decided to adopt him. After all, this is my house, and I am the one who is going to bear all the expenses for Muffin, so I don't see why they should have any complaints. When I brought Muffin home, as expected, my parents and Sandy started complaining. "Hey, we didn't hear anything about you getting a dog." Exactly. Dogs have odors, don't they? I hate smells. "Kathy, how could you just bring a dog home without seeking our input? We did not authorize this." As they voiced their grievances to me, I firmly informed them that I did not pluck him from the street. The comrade presented him to me. Moreover, I am the one who will shoulder all the expenses for Muffin, so there should not be any problem. What I opt to harbor in my abode is my concern. If you have any objections, you are at liberty to depart." Initially, they grumbled vehemently, their visages flushed with fury. However, within a few hours, they were captivated by Muffin's charm and began to dote on him. "Aren't you adorable? Are you mommy? Are you daddy? Or are you sis? Look over here, darling." Hold on, what happened to their anger just a moment ago? Was it all a reverie? My entire family was absolutely enchanted by Muffin. Subsequently, they were consistently fussing over Muffin. Thanks to this, their animosity towards me had diminished, and I was able to spend relatively tranquil days. Then one day, an incident occurred that shattered this calmness. While I was out for an errand, I received a call from my sister Sandy. "Hello, come back home now." In reply to my sister's sudden exclamation, I inquired what happened. She vented her anger, shouting back at me, "It's not what happened. Muffin did his business on my clothes. What if they smell? Oh, just launder it swiftly, and it will be fine. And isn't it your fault for leaving your clothes all over the floor? What? It's my fault? It's your inadequate training that's to blame. Enough. Muffin is still a pup, you know. If you take him out for a stroll, he won't do his duty at home. You mentioned you were thrilled to walk Muffin today. Did you really take him?" "Well, I was planning to take him later, and it's all because you didn't instruct him properly. Reimburse me for the garments." As anticipated, when I arrived home, my sister was extremely furious. Both my folks had been notified, and they were glaring at me, standing with Sandy. Sandy tossed the soiled clothes at me and started freaking out again. "I'm going to bill you for the cleaning cost, okay?" "Why should I?" "It's because you didn't take him for a walk and left your clothes thrown on the floor." "Shut up. Don't talk back. It's because you brought this foolish dog home that this happened. What are you going to do about it?" "Foolish dog? You were quite fond of him before. Isn't it severe to call him a foolish dog just because he had a little mishap? It's because of your inadequate training. Take responsibility." Why can't my family think of anything other than their own convenience? While I was shocked by my selfish sister, my parents chimed in, "Hey, Kathy, shouldn't you at least apologize to Sandy first?" "That's right. All of this happened because of that Muffin you brought home." "Ah, can both of you give it a rest already? Puppies are like babies. Can't you forgive them for making errors once in a while?" Pathetic. This situation only happened because of this foolish dog. Kathy, you made the right choice by not getting wedded. If you turned into a mother, I question you'd raise a respectable child. What? How dare you utter something like that? If you took him for strolls appropriately and kept the residence neat, none of this would have occurred. At last, my sibling lifted her eyebrow and indicated me, stating, "I can't endure it any longer. I don't require you or this foolish dog. Depart from this residence." "What? Didn't you hear me? I stated depart. We don't need a work-from-home freeloader here." "A work-from-home freeloader? How can someone presently unemployed say such a thing? And who do they think is covering the household expenditures? It's me." As I stood puzzled by my sister's shocking statement, even my parents joined in. "That's correct, Kathy. Leave this residence. Your presence only makes us feel worse. You're a jinx." All three kept repeating, "Depart," in front of me. At that moment, my fury erupted. That's it. I've reached my limit. If this is how it's going to be, just wait. I, who had resolved to seek vengeance on my family, packed my belongings and departed the residence with Muffin. In the end, my sister added fuel to the fire. "This is all your fault, you know. If you had just listened to me obediently, none of this would have happened." They still didn't seem to comprehend their situation. Even though hell awaits them, well, never mind. You three enjoy yourselves in the residence. Suppressing my grinning mouth, I left the residence with Muffin. A few days later, as anticipated, my sister abruptly called. Kathy, assist. The residence is? What occurred to the residence all of a sudden? We were instructed to vacate by the end of this month. So what? So what's the issue? What do you mean, what's the issue? Why do we have to depart? Well, I've chosen to put up for sale the residence. What? At my words, Sandy seemed to freeze. With a trembling voice, she barely managed to say, what does that imply? You've chosen to sell it. You don't have the authority. Well, I do. You see, that residence has been mine for a month now. What? Yes, I had officially received the residence from my uncle. Of course, the title is in my name. It's no surprise that Sandy was shocked. You're kidding, right? Even if the title was transferred to you by uncle, you can't just sell it so easily. I was concerned too, but right after you told me to leave, I consulted with uncle. He said, the residence is yours now, Kathy. Do what you want. You should get away from that foolish family as soon as possible. What? No way. Whether they'd been listening to my conversation with Sandy over the phone speaker or not, my parents started to make a fuss. Hey, Kathy, cut it out. We have no other place to live if we leave the residence. That's right. It's unthinkable to do this to your own family. If you're a good daughter, show some regard to your parents. Regard? I asked them with a quiet voice. What are you talking about? You've always looked down on me. Compared to Sandy, who do you think has been supporting your life for the recent years? You all had no place to live, so I reluctantly allowed you all to reside with me. With an unusually strong manner, my parents were speechless. Without waiting for a reply, I continued, who mistreated me and Muffin like pests and evicted us? It was you folks, wasn't it? Trying to find joy by driving out the original occupant is disgraceful. You individuals belong to hell. At my outburst, my father pleaded, please assist us. We're apologetic. I don't care. Take care of yourselves, you fools. With that, I ended the call with a loud click. Then I blocked every family member's contacts. Seeing me raise my voice, Muffin looked up at me with a concerned woof. I embraced Muffin tightly. I'm sorry, Muffin, for yelling. It's all right now. I will protect you. I'm really relieved that I was able to rescue Muffin from that family that mistreated him so badly. Later on, it appears my parents and sister were compelled to leave the house at the last minute despite their desperate clinging. With my father's modest earnings and my unemployed mother and sister, there's no way they can live a respectable life. According to the rumors, my sister is constantly being pestered by my parents to find a job. Their family relationship seems to be deteriorating. Although I have no interest in their way of life, there's no doubt that their standard of living has declined since I departed. This is indeed the case of getting what you deserve. Serves them right. Meanwhile, I'm spending my days in satisfaction with my adored canine in a fresh pet-welcoming flat. I am able to work at any time I desire, and nobody can object to it any longer. I can utilize my income exclusively for myself and my canine. I am incredibly content with my current existence. Muffin, shall we visit the canine park today? Woof! Muffin appears more energetic. Perhaps it's due to the departure of that loud family. From this point forward, I aim to safeguard Muffin for the duration of my life and live a tranquil existence.